in the domestic quarters, or if you like, the RAF village, where everybody took up residence, away from the risk of attack from the main airfield in case that happened. So built on the traditional A shape to the runways, which allowed landing and takeoff regardless of wind direction, 2,000 yards long for the main runway, and a perimeter track.
Black aficionados might know that most of the wartime Lancs that were here in the war were Mark 1s or Mark 3s with either Rolls-Royce Merlins or American Packard-built Merlins. Very, very similar sort of aircraft together. The Mark 7 was a design that came up later on towards the end of the war, and the idea was that was going to be part of Tiger Force. I don't know if you know what Tiger Force was. It was going to be the RAF contribution towards finishing the war off in the Far East. And the Americans came along and put a quick stop to that, so Tiger Force was never needed. And so the Mark 7 Lancs, and this Lanc in particular, was never actually used for operational service. So it was built in April 1945 by Austin Motors at Longbridge, and so never saw any operational service and went almost immediately into storage. And was in storage for several years.
Empire countries, all the Allied countries, you might have a Free French at the back, you might have a Czech, you might have an American, a Canadian, Australian, New Zealander, who knows? Okay. And the ranks range from sergeant to about squadron leader. And by that time you're very tired. You would rather be flying a desk than flying a Lancaster. Okay. So, the first Lancaster flies on the 9th of January 1941. But we need to make sure it works. Okay. We are very good in the British military at bringing equipment into service before we've actually tested it. Alright? Trust me, I've had 22 years in the army of this stuff, alright? And one of the prime examples in the Second World War was the Manchester. Didn't quite work. Engines weren't powerful enough, couldn't carry enough bombs. So here comes the Lanc. Okay? the left-hand side, we have the wireless operator, and on the right-hand side, we have the astro position. These are seated positions. You will have a window overlooking the wing on either side, okay? The only position that doesn't have a window is in the middle of the fuselage. It's that special operator's position. In this case, it's radar, okay? In the mid-upper turret, I have room for 3 of you, okay? Ladies, I would suggest you don't go for that.
Right then, so in the aircraft is going to be myself, and next to me will be Keith, the flight engineer, who's not around at the moment, and Liz, and we're talking to each other on intercom. So once we're happy you're all in your allocated places and ready to go, we'll start the engines up. We start them in the order of 3, 4, 2, 1, or as we've just recently found out, in the wartime they were referred to as the starboard inner, starboard outer, port inner, port outer. When we start the engines, we pump fuel into the cylinders to start with to prime them, and obviously they've run already today, and so the engines will be quite warm. So it's not unusual when we start turning the engines over and the starter motors, you see a sheet of flame coming out of the exhaust. Don't worry about it, it's not unusual, it happens quite a lot. We just keep the engines turning over and they start up as normal. Having said that now, it probably won't happen and we'll be very disappointed. But if you do see that, don't worry about it. So we'll sit there for a little while when the engine's ticking over, we get rid of the ladders, we get rid of the chocks, we get rid of the ground batteries, that sort of thing, and then we're ready to go. The sign for you we're about to move off is when you hear me bring the throttles back to idle. The aircraft sat here with about 1200 RPM on, just to keep them clear of oil, but the engine is very powerful, the aircraft is very light, so when we taxi we only need very, very little power. So when you hear me bring the throttles back to a tick over, that's the sign we're about to move off. What I'll do is release the brakes, we'll then start moving forward a little bit. I always just then check the brakes are working evenly and smoothly, so you feel a little bit of retardation. Then as earlier on this morning, cross the concrete, onto the grass, manoeuvre around on the grass. Somehow when I start taxing on the grass, the old girl starts bouncing up and down a bit, so just make sure that wherever you are, you're restrained, you're not going to fall over. Make sure you're braced against something solid or somebody solid, make sure you're not going to fall over. We'll manoeuvre around on the grass like we did before. Today with that wind, what we'll do is we'll go down to the western end of the grass runway, we'll turn and face down the grass runway, incidentally straight towards Berlin, and what we'll do is put the brakes on, we'll then check all the temperature and pressure, check the engines are all looking alright, and then what's the idea in my mind is we'll just simulate a small sort of takeoff, sort of like a simulated takeoff. Those guys that are here all those years ago, are we going to get back? Is that the end of it? Quiet please over there in cheap seats. Thank you.
Go on, pilot man.
So we'll just simulate a sort of takeoff, so we'll get the sensation of are we going to come back or not, that sort of thing. I'll release the brakes, we'll roar off down the grass runway. After a while I think that's far enough, and we'll bring the power back, we'll just slow down to normal speed, just under normal control. We'll then manoeuvre around on the grass a little bit more, back onto the concrete, back on level with the path here. And as I always say, it's fantastic to have a real live ride in a real live Lancaster, on a real live Lancaster airfield. But what's even better is the sound of those Merlin engines, the glorious sound of the Merlins. So I'll run the inboard engines up to about 1800 RPM, as you've seen earlier on. It sounds good, it looks good, and if you're on board, it feels good as well. So we'll do that in the inboard engines. About 30 seconds, bring those back to idle, tick over again. Outboard engines up to 1800 RPM, you'll see the wing flexing, so come on, let's go flying. But we won't today, not today. Having then brought those back to idle again, we'll continue back up to about here as we did earlier on and shut the aircraft down. It'll stay here this time, we're not going to turn it around like we did this morning, so it'll stay in this position, that sort of sunlight. So a couple of points then. When you're doing the tour inside the aeroplane, as Liz said, with half of you at the front with me and half down the back, when you're up front with me, what I'll do is get you one at a time sat in the pilot seat.
just had a very quick swap of stuff.
Exchange, yeah, right.
Yeah.
You see his own engines, his own wings, his own tailplane, certainly in a certain line and a certain point on the display side. Yeah. And you can, with this aircraft, you're not trying to show it off. Simple height and turn slip, that gives you the right angle of the angle of bank and also the rate of turn.
Yeah.
Make sure in turn. That's all flight instrument stuff. Everything here is engine related, so everything's in 4s. So ignition switches, it's like a car ignition where you have a key, but here you have switches. And most aero engines have dual ignition, so you have 2 sets of spark plugs, 2 sets of magnetos, so therefore you've got 2 sets of switches. Boost gauges, that's controlled by the throttles, that's the power of each engine. The RPM gauges, that's the speed of the engine. So in an aircraft like this with variable pitch blades, you can set the speed. Oh dear, yes, it's taking all the fun. I mean, I've got an hour.
And the fuel that this uses, is it
100 octane, so slightly more refined than normal car fuel, but
Napier
yeah,
engine,
lovely.
that record holder. And
Move around, you know, many ways you can possibly manage, and then try and move around in the airplane.
that's always the problem, is the way the ground sloped away. It looked like it was skimming the ground.
Yeah, lovely.
Probably went pretty low.
Lovely,
But
lovely.
that-
Interesting. Not to get too carried away.
Right. Now, as a young 19-year-old, there he is. side to side between the tails, a total of 174 degrees in 3 seconds hydraulically, 9 seconds if you have to do it by hand. The hand crank handle, much inconvenience, is situated underneath the right hand machine gun. Behind the right elbow there in the door you will find a hatchet. It has, excellent. That's in case we crash land. You can use the hatchet to either go up through the perspex, just like Brian wanted to do, or you could come all the way back into here, go out through the side wall. It's only 1/8 of an inch thick aluminium, and that's really quite hot now. Okay. Also, if tail end Charlie is trapped, it's there so he can self-amputate to get himself out. If this aircraft is on fire, you are going to take the option. Okay. So cold, lonely, and claustrophobic. Not great, is it?
Worryingly, that's happened, isn't it? For them to even come up with that. Someone's had to chop the leg off.
Yeah.
Or arm off.
Strangely, for the first time, I think it was a fortnight ago, there was a veteran came along, these 2 fingers missing, and I thought, shall I ask or shan't I? And I plucked up the courage and I said, excuse me sir, how did you lose them? He said, trapped in the back. He'd actually got trapped in the gun mechanism when they crash landed. It was his only way out. So I've actually found one that works. Okay. So there we go.
What about the pigeon?
Right, the carrier pigeon. There are 2 carrier pigeons on board. One at the back here, one would be with the wireless operator up the front, and they are the emergency communication system. So if all else fails, pop the pigeon, note in his little lead canister. You can either deploy him out the door, out through the roof hatch behind the wireless operator, or out through any of the 2 front windows. He will then come home. Every bomber station had a pigeon lock.
Really?
Okay. World War I technology, which was retired in 1944. The 2 reasons I will give you is that communications became more robust, and with the invention of the jet engine, you can't really throw them out the window anymore.
No.
It gets a bit messy after a while.
So every aircraft carried
Every bomber, yes, every bomber. So for example, we would have had 2 on board here. Halifax, I believe, had 2. Mosquitoes had 1.
Really?
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
It's always something
If
when
it
you
works,
get home.
if it works.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right, so if you'd like to shimmy back for me.